All right, well, let me start by welcoming everybody. My name is Michael Struit. I am a faculty member in the political science department at NC State, and I teach courses about the United Nations and international law and international organizations and stuff like that. But then also in my spare time as a hobby, I've joined with some wonderful board members to serve in directing our local Wake County chapter of the United Nations Association of the United States of America. And we're sort of in the process of revitalizing our chapter. This global pandemic thing has, of course, made the need for international organizations and the United Nations more obvious to everyone than it has been in a long time, but it's also presented some challenges in getting things going. But we're starting this Zoom speaker series, and this is actually our inaugural event, and we're very excited to have our presenters here from public television here in North Carolina. But as always, our chapter, wants to show the linkages between the international and the global and what's happening right here in North Carolina wherever we can. And I think our speakers today very much exemplify that. And they're gonna, from our perspective, all of this is about efforts that are constantly going on around the world to achieve the various United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular, the Sustainable Development Goal of providing a quality education for all. And so with that, I want to introduce my colleague, the longtime former president of this chapter and the current treasurer of the chapter, Robert Lamb, who is going to introduce our speakers. Robert, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Michael. We've been having programs at the UN for UN chapter for a number of years. And when we had one, I've always thought it was useful to let the newcomers realize that the UNA is not a part of the United Nations. It's an organization, a citizen organization that was founded just a few years after the UN was created in 1945. And its purpose was to teach Americans about what the UN does, about its work and principles, so that the citizens would become advocates for the UN with their Congress people, the representatives, because Congress is the one that ends up paying the United States' membership fees. So anyway, the impression that people have about the UN, of course, varies. And I think most people think of the UN as an organization that devotes all of its energy to trying to eliminate the threats to world peace. And of course it does that, but in modern times, the UN devotes now probably more time to trying to create the conditions that would allow world peace to be achieved and sustained. And so in September of 2015, 193 nations met in New York at the UN, and they drew up what they called a blueprint, a global blueprint for dignity, peace, and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. And this plan consisted of 17 goals that were called the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. And they were these goals were to be achieved by the year 2030. And they cover topics ranging from poverty and healthcare to sustainable cities and environmental protection. But essentially, these SDGs are a universal call to action by citizens, NGOs, corporations, and governments to work individually and in partnership with each other to address specific tasks that these goals have outlined. And one of the goals calls for the availability of quality education to everyone. And that being the case, I realized that we have one of the world's premier developers of children's education right here in the Triangle. And the Pbs North Carolina. And by the way, I should point out that Pbs North Carolina is the the new name for what was originally called UNC-TV. But in the work that UNC-TV or the PBS North Carolina is doing now in children's education has been expanded recently into the area of very early learning, into pre-kindergarten. And I learned about the importance of early education through one of the PBS science programs about the brain, in which they reveal that the peak, the number of neurons and synapses in the human mind, the human brain, reaches a peak in the 2 to 3 year old range, and that the parts of that brain that are not stimulated by the environment wither and eventually die. So that this emphasizes the importance of education, of educating very young toddlers and kids before the kindergarten age. So this being the case, I was happy when the group of North Carolina children's media people decided they agreed to speak today about their work. And the four of the principal North Carolina children's media and education people are with us today. And the Joy Potts is the director of the team. And Joy is responsible for the strategic direction of PBS North Carolina's Children's Media and Education Service. And in that capacity, she's responsible for finding ways to use the power of public media to serve the educational needs of students and teachers in North Carolina. And she's been with PBS children's programming for more than 15 years and working in areas of production, content development, and recently in the conceptualization of a new brand and the name Roodle for PBS North Carolina's 24-hour children's channel, children's TV channel. Yeah, another member of the group is Mallory Ambalia. She's the Director of Educational Engagement. And Mallory holds a Bachelor of Science in Human Development, an MA Ed in Curriculum and Instruction, and an MSA Masters of School Administration. She served as a kindergarten teacher in a variety of elementary schools, ranging from Title I to gifted and talented magnet schools. And she served as an elementary principal, elementary assistant principal for 3 years. And she's been at PBS NC for over 10 years. And in 2018, she was named PBS Digital Innovator All-Star. The third person in the group is Jade Packer. She's program manager of engagement initiatives. And Jade's goal is to achieve equity in education by bridging the opportunity and accessibility gaps that exist between rural and urban communities. And she's gained experience through this area from her early work as an instructional assistant and a counselor in the Wayne County Public School System. And in her current service at PBS, she's launched and sustained a statewide texting service to reach families with no access to educational services. And Laurie Mcdowell is the fourth member of the team, and she's a program coordinator with engagement initiatives. And Lauren has a Bachelor of Science in Birth to Kindergarten Education from Campbell University and a Master of Education in Educational Leadership Policy and Adequacy in Early Education from UNC Wilmington. And she has unique experiences and knowledge in early childhood education that she's acquired from her history of working in special education, early intervention, and nonprofit organizations, and in professional development. So these 4 young women are going to talk about all the work that they're doing in educating children. And in addition, I need also to point out that one of the things that they are very concerned about is equity, and in reaching everybody to, they are specifically trying to make it possible that the products they develop can be accessed by people rich and poor, and regardless of the location. And so they're going to talk to us about that project now. So I would now turn it over to Joy to start the program.
Thank you so much, Robert. Wow, we can just skip our intro slide because you took care of it beautifully. First off,
try to start that.
That's fine, Michael. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and start our slides. We are all just delighted to have been invited to join you all today and share on our efforts. And equity is at the center of the universe when it comes to our work with Public Media North Carolina. And so today's presentation is truly going to be about how we spend our days seeking to provide equitable access to educational content through our powerful platforms in media as a media agency. So if you want to go ahead and advance through that slide. Thanks so much, Michael. And again, just delighted to be here, and you can go ahead and advance through that one as well. And this one, since Robert took care of it. We're going to start, and many of you may know PBS and Pbs Kids. Maybe Sesame Street was in your life, is in your life now through children or grandchildren. But we have a whole new cast of characters, of course. We're going to start with a little bit of fun trivia. I don't know if you can back up to that previous slide. I'm going to turn it over to Lauren to take care of, oops, you can go backwards. There you go. And Lauren, do you want to lead everyone in this quick activity?
Yeah, I sure will. So we want to take a moment and reflect. I grew up with Pbs Kids, and again, good afternoon, I'm Lauren. My favorite shows growing up were Reading Rainbow, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but we have a lot of new, really, really exciting educational shows. So we want to take a second, hop in the chat and share your favorite Pbs Kids show. The one pictured on that slide, you can go back to the characters if you want. Mr. Michael, just one slide forward. Yeah, right there. So we can leave it on that while everyone shares in the chat. These are 3 stars of a new show. That's Carmen, Andy, and Leo. They are on Let's Go Luna. And these 3 friends travel the world with their families in a traveling circus. And their guide is actually Luna, the moon. And as they visit and explore new places, Luna guides them. So I'm sure you can pick up on the play on words there. So go ahead and share in the chat. Let's take a look. Yes, we see some Sesame, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Reading Rainbow. Yes, Miss Vivian, love it. Sid the Science Kid and Sesame Street. There are so many just classics, and even some of the new ones shared. Sid the Science Kid, yes. Just so many great shows. And for me, it's very nostalgic, even in this work today. All that I learned growing up and so much that kids are continuing to learn through our programs. So I'm going to pass it back to Joy. She's going to share what's been happening for us here at PBSNC.
So the 4 of us, thank you, Lauren. And one of my favorite shows and what inspired me to get into this business was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And happy to see that evolve through the years and reach modern audiences through Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood today. We are all with the Division of Children's Media and Education Services, and much of our work, we aim to reach children and their grown-ups, birth and even with prenatal with some of our resources to 12th grade. And I will say that much of our effort is spent within the early learning space. As Robert was saying, research shows that 90% of brain growth happens before 5. And certainly a lot of our work is focused in that space. There's a lot of room for making impact in that space. Yes, we do broadcast those amazing PBS Kids programs that are educationally centered. Education's baked into every second of those programs. But a lot of our effort is on engagement with audiences across platforms. Much of it spent on the ground pre-COVID days, extending the learning beyond the screen. So taking that rich learning that happens, powerful learning that happens between that screen, whether it's the TV or a tablet and the child, and extending it with on the ground engagement, hands-on activities, extended learning activities. So a lot of the work of this team is through that type of engagement. And we've captured it all, of course, being a media agency, in a sweet little video. And hopefully Zoom will play along today. If you can advance, Michael, and then click, we're going to share a fun little sizzle on our work, if it plays. If not, we'll share it with you later. See if you can click in there. And maybe it's not going to work with us today. Yeah. You can just go back to slides, Michael. Something may have happened with the upload of that video. I am so sorry. We will absolutely share it with you all after. Oh, there we go. Okay. Seeing it, but.
Caroline.
Should I let it run? Sorry.
With community partners.
That's fine. Yeah, that's great that you were able to pull it up, and I'm sorry about that bad link.
And interact with a variety of communities across the state. We love what we get to do with educators here in North Carolina. We work with pre-K all the way through high school teachers in order to provide them resources so that they can better serve their students.
Some of the most crucial work we do with children's media and education services is providing resources and educational programming to a child's first teacher, their parent. We do this by offering them resources at community events and also through parenting workshops, partnering with local schools across North Carolina.
Write by Text is our brand new texting initiative. Parents and caregivers can subscribe to this service at absolutely no cost, and they can receive educational tips as well as school readiness tips and information about free events that go on across the state.
I love working with the Rudel team. I get the opportunity to work with the children, the families, educators, and communities of the state, and we can see the impact of our work by seeing the smiles on all the faces.
And of course, our largest platform is our broadcast signal. Through Rudel, our children's brand and 24/7 Kids channel, we deliver quality research-based educational content from PBS Kids 24 hours a day for free to households across North Carolina.
So happy. Thank you so much for getting that to play, Michael.
Sure.
So yes, and Rudel is our biggest platform. Rudel, our 24/7 Kids channel, reaches about 3.8 million across the state over the air and free. And then PBS North Carolina, our main channel, on that channel we have a 7-hour Rudel block, and that's 7 hours of educational content that reaches over 13 million in our state and beyond. And so we know that there's a lot of power in that platform to reach children with educational content to get them ready for school, because there is a percentage of young children in our state that don't have access to quality preschool education. And that's where we can step in. Our broadcast signal reaches into corners where broadband will not. So today we're going to talk about some of our activities, our engagement activities, and how we utilize and harness that power that we have as a media agency and an educational media agency to reach children and enhance their lives in the most equitable way. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Mallory. I believe you're next up. So here's the mic, Mallory.
Okay, so here we go. So Michael, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the root of the solution. We have this analogy that I believe that we always talk about early childhood education as a foundation. But I tend to say that it goes way deeper than that. I call us the roots, because a foundation is something you stand on. Roots are something you draw from for the rest of your life. So what you're exposed to the first 5 years of life, you draw from for the rest of your life. There's something called conscious discipline where they talk about stuff being downloaded on your CD-ROM. It's things and experiences you draw from, whether they're directly or indirectly. They show up in our practices and our mannerisms and how we kind of take in the world. So if we're talking about disrupting inequities in the world, we talk about the root of the solution and how it all starts at the roots. What happens in early childhood stays with kids for a lifetime, and whatever they're exposed to, they absorb. They absolutely absorb those experiences. And so there's this gap that often occurs in kindergarten, is not due to children not being able to attain these different things. It's really about exposure and what they need to be successful in this place called school. It's not because they're incapable. I'll say that again. It's because they haven't really been exposed to these skill sets. They're exposed to what they need to thrive in the environment that they're thriving in. So when I was teaching kindergarten, it wasn't about disrupting and me coming in to save them for anything. It was about just exposing them to new different skills and things that they could adapt in both worlds. They could be successful in the school world as well as keep those great skills that they learned to survive and thrive in the world that they live in for their life.
Question number 7.
So by exposing children,
first class method.
Good.
So by exposing children to these educational content and resources at this young age, it becomes a part of their roots. And expectations, I always talk about expectations playing a role too. Kids will often rise or fall to whatever is expected of them. And so roots sustain, just like roots sustain a tree, they also sustain lifelong learning. We can go to the next slide, Michael. So an equitable mindset, we have to change our mindset from all children can learn to knowing that all children are constantly learning. So when we're thinking about disrupting these things, it's really about skills and not drills. How do I incorporate these skills that kids need to be successful in school with already the ones that they're equipped with? And how am I making sure that I'm supporting each kid in a way that really shows respect for them and who they are, at the same time as holding really high expectations for all and providing those great opportunities for all. All right, next slide, Michael, thank you. So PBS, this is where we kind of come in with our thing. We are a trusted brand and we're educationally sound. It has been welcomed by kids and families for all these years. When you think of PBS, I think of it as a trusted blanket, a warm hug, something that you know you can fall back on. You never have to worry about what you're going to get. You know it's going to be educationally sound, it's going to be safe, and it's going to help kids expand their knowledge of the world and develop those skills. Also, engagement is really important. So I always talk about kids connect to the characters, thus they connect to the content. So thinking, oh, we went backwards, Michael. Thank you. So with our equitable lens continuing, PBS North Carolina recognizes the natural brilliance in all kids. These resources and this programming is for all kids, all children. Doesn't matter if you're well water, you're city water. Doesn't matter what your face looks like, what your space looks like. The resources that provide and program that spark everything from imagination, curiosity, critical thinking, empathy, connection, creativity, inquisition, self-confidence, perseverance, kindness, love, and so much more. These are the skills and traits that all kids benefit from, and that is what will close gaps. The next slide. And that goes to Jade.
Thank you, Mallory. So it's great to talk about equity, but we like to be about it. And the way we do that is by working with community partners. So on the next slide, you'll see a few examples of how we partner with various communities across the state. Oh, we went backwards. And there you go. So the first way we do that is through what we refer to as family and community learning workshops.
So these are workshops for families with children between the ages of 2 to 8. And if you can just go back one more slide. I know Zoom is just, there we go. So these are typically workshops for families with children between the ages of 2 and 8, plus their younger and older siblings. Families can come out to a partner site, sit down for a meal, then engage in educational, fun, and hands-on activities that are typically tied to a theme of a PBS Kids show. This is a completely free event. Then we have what's called our Playful Learning Workshops. This is where educators, parents, caregivers, community members, and more can come out and be trained on the various PBS Kids content and resources. And the great thing about it is we always make sure that everything is aligned to state and national standards, because we want to make sure that it's relevant to our families and our audience, and that it's relevant to our teachers who are going back to the classroom with this. These workshops are typically done in partnership with our local Partnership for Children organizations. Then on a larger scale, we have what's called our PBS Regional Teacher Summits. These are typically in partnership with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and they're hosted twice a year. Educators come out, typically on a Saturday, for a full 6 to 8 hour summit. They get breakfast, they get lunch, and then they can attend several sessions that's relevant to their educational needs. The great thing about it is at the end of the summit, they can earn contact hour credits as well as continuing education units that go towards their teaching license. And just to give you a taste of what the scale of these are like, when we were hosting these in person, we were oftentimes limited to the physical space that we were in, which was typically a high school. So we could only accommodate between 300 to 400 educators, but then we would have 1,000 plus educators on the wait list. So while we're on hiatus right now, and we're hoping to get these back up and running within the next year, we're really excited about the option of a hybrid model where there's an in-person option as well as a virtual option to accommodate more educators. Then we have what is called our at-home learning initiative, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about. This is also a partnership with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, as well as the Friday Institute out of NC State. And this was born out of a response to school closures due to COVID. And we realized that lots of kids and families have limited to no access to broadband. And so a way to get educational resources into their hands was by utilizing our broadcast, which has a broad reach. So what we did was we followed the lead of PBS SoCal out of California, and we began airing a nationally curated block of PBS programming covering science, math, English language arts, and social studies for those in grades 4 through 12 on the North Carolina channel. We then directed our kids in the pre-K through 3 audience to our main channel for the Pbs Kids block, as well as our 24/7 channel Roodle. And then our partner, DPI, they took our national content that was being broadcast and developed supplemental resource packets that went out to school districts across the state, and they were distributed to those who were picking up meals at various meal sites. So that was sort of the first phase of the initiative. Joy will talk a little bit about the second phase of it, which we're currently in on the next few slides. And then lastly, we have our PBS digital innovators, early learning champions, and trainers. These are the people that make all of this happen. These individuals have been recognized nationally by PBS as well as us. And because of their excellent work, we put them on contract. And they are the ones who facilitate our trainings and our workshops, and they shape a lot of the structure of our workshops. And they're also there to make recommendations about who we should partner with and which communities we should serve. And so on the next 3 slides, you'll actually see some photos of some of our family and community learning workshops that we hosted in Wayne County. A couple of the photos were taken at a local elementary school, as well as the local Boys and Girls Club during a camp. So you see there, the kids are doing various activities with their parents, as well as you see Mallory there, who was facilitating one of those workshops. And so you can click through the next 2 slides. They're just some photos. And then you can go to the next one. . And so this last slide that you see is actually when we went virtual with our family and community learning workshop. So that goes to show you that even in the midst of a pandemic, we're still able to reach our kids and families. And so here I will toss it back over to Lauren.
And I think, thank you, Jade. I think there's one slide before this one, Michael. Sorry for the delays. And there we go.
Oh,
I'm going to let Joy, if you want to touch on that before I get into Watch, Play, Explore, Share.
Absolutely. And so as Jade mentioned, we could not do our work without partners. It is always a collaboration. And as you saw some great photos from our work over 2 years in Wayne County, and you'll see there, that was an example of a partnership. What we got funding through Corporation for Public Broadcasting through the Ready to Learn grant to launch a community collaborative for early learning and media. So we brought together 5 to 6 partners. They spanned from schools, the Boys and Girls Club, the library, so all education agencies to come together and create this model to most effectively engage with families. And that entailed us hosting those family community learning nights and playful learning workshops and train the trainer sessions. And really was the impetus and the spark for what we are now getting ready to launch through our Rudel Ambassador program, and we'll talk about that a little later. A Parent Engagement in Schools initiative is another model of partnership in Catawba County. We're working in 2 schools within that county, specifically in NC pre-K classrooms to launch some family engagement. That has all gone virtual with COVID, but we're still able to engage with those families even in a COVID year. And then there's the At Home Learning Initiative, which is mammoth. And it was one of those reactive initiatives that came about because of the pandemic and children being forced to learn at home, not having access to the in-person instruction in a classroom. And it was certainly launched as a phased approach with that curated program block on our NC channel of programming for 4th to 12th grade students, utilizing the best PBS Kids or PBS programs like Nova, Nature, History Detectives, curated in a way that was appropriate for enhancing learning at home. And then we continued conversations with Department of Public Instruction last summer, going into this, this school year, poised to be able to launch something else as part of that initiative, knowing that students were still going to be learning at home. And that is what happened with phase 2. And through conversations, they identified the greatest need was to reach early learners with literacy and math content, specifically pre-K to 3rd grade. And so we ended up receiving some funding through DPI and to launch what we call the Classroom Connection, which is a specialized block of content. It includes PBS content, so Pbs Kids programs, alongside original content featuring teachers, North Carolina teachers. We recruited over 25 NC teachers teaching math and literacy lessons in a way that's digestible for broadcast. Obviously, it's very different from in-person classroom instruction. And so you've got a nice 2-hour block of teachers teaching, delivering lessons alongside our Pbs Kids educational content. We also partnered with talent across North Carolina and agencies to create some really robust educational filler materials, such as one of the agencies we partnered with was the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And so in between the Pbs Kids programs and the teachers teaching lessons, we also have these really nice shorts that are educational focused to fill out that 2-hour block. And we launched that block. We soft launched it in February and then just recently launched the full block last week. And it exists on PBS North Carolina during Rudel Pbs Kids programming from 8 to 10 a.m. Mondays and Tuesdays, and then repeats on Thursdays and Fridays. And it also is supported by a robust website and online extension activities. So each week parents can go in, download the schedule. They have access to the lesson plans from the teacher lessons and also complementary extension activities that are matched to the PBS Kids programs as well as the teacher lessons. So that was our phase 2 of at-home learning, and we will continue the Classroom Connection broadcast block through August, recognizing the critical need to reach students with learning and educational opportunities through the summer, knowing that that summer learning gap is going to be even more prevalent this year. And so it's been a mammoth initiative, but an incredible partnership. I think I missed one more bullet on that slide. I don't know if you could just go back. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael, maybe advance 2 more. Yes, there we go. Teacher time was also a complement, and as part of the at-home learning initiative was a complement to Classroom Connection. Those are shorts developed around STEM education, and we recruited educators who were a part of the North Carolina Teacher of the Year cohort, and they literally were shipped production kits to film STEM activities from their home. They sent us back the footage, and we then did magic in post and integrated all sorts of fun ways to engage with that content: animation, animated elements, motion graphics, and packaged each of those activities in the way of a broadcast short. So they're a minute long activities that are included within our Classroom Connection block, and we also air those shorts in our Roodle lineup on our 24/7 channel as well. And the teacher time spots were made possible through funding supported by Borough's Welcome Fund. But those are some partnership examples of how we're able to reach children and families across North Carolina. We could not do it without our community partners. So if you'll go ahead and advance the slide. Thank you, Michael. I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren to talk about a learning model created by Pbs Kids, Watch, Play, Explore, Share. And I've got that fun little song in my head. I don't know if you can remember that song from our training 2 nights ago, Lauren, but
I will spare this beautiful group with our voices.
Hey,
we've got a fun song. Oh, you got it, Mallory. Okay, go for it.
Watch, play, explore, and share. Watch, play, explore, and share. Watch, play, explore, and share. We do this every day.
Yay!
Yes. Now that's going to be stuck in everyone's head.
So just like she's saying, this is such an easy 4-step model. So whenever we have engagements with parents, teachers, community members, we have these 4 easy steps that we love to share because this ultimately engages each learning style. And I'm a big one for inclusion. So ultimately, we're looking to foster meaningful learning for all learners. So I'm going to quickly share a little in depth on these 4 steps. The first, yes, it's the watch. We begin with that media connection. So anytime we're sitting down with a learner of any age, we've got that hook, and that's our Pbs Media. And ultimately, Pbs Media helps bring content to life for learners. Like I said, all learners, whether you're in the classroom or at home, and a big chunk are at home right now. So that watch is pretty easy. We click it on. So we'll actually be sharing some more of those media resources in just a little bit with you. But to hop on to the play, learning through play looks different for each grade level, age, stage, but this step in the model is so important because this is where the learner has the opportunity to take responsibility for their own learning. And this ultimately fosters that meaningful engagement, connecting and integrating what the learner just viewed in the watch and connecting it to the content, whether it's in the classroom or at home. And then next we have the explore, and this is where the trusted adult steps in for a deeper dive into that content with hands-on learning. So like I said, that's the trusted adult, whether it's the teacher in the classroom, the aunt that is caring for this learner, the grandfather that is with the learner. This is step number 3, where they really hop in to help that deeper dive. And then last but not least is share. As the learner shares what they have collected through watching, playing, and exploring, they are actually extending that deepest level of Bloom's taxonomy. So here we see the learner provided with time for further critical thinking, building upon their sense of self, those communication skills, relationship building, and even boosting their confidence there. So you see 4 quick steps really take that learning to a deeper, more meaningful level for learners. And actually, Mallory's going to share a little bit in the next slide on one of our awesome shows. We're going to look at a few of our shows quickly to see how Watch, Play, Explore, Share brings that learning to life. So I'll pass it to you, Mallory.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to go through a content walk, which you guys can get exposure to some of our wonderful PBS NC friends. So this one is Pinkalicious. You might know of her from her storybooks. Victoria Khan is the author of all those wonderful books, and now Pinkalicious is on screen with her brother Peterific. And so this one is all about art integration. Those great skills that come with being an artist, including creativity and perseverance, and like when you get stuck and all those beautiful oops moments. She addresses all of those, exploring ways to be creative, and she is definitely a fun friend. And we're going to go to our next friend. Oh, and we have our foundations under there too to see how they align. So Lauren, this is you.
Yeah, so our next is Super Y. You can see that learner is engaging with our Pbs Kids app. So not only is Super Y amazing on our Brutal channel, but also on the app, really awesome. So Super Y empowers and equips young readers. And it's all about 4 fairy tale friends that go on magical adventures to become reading powered superheroes. So really that super learner, Mallory and I are always powering up as super learners. They really just bring that power to read to life for learners. And next is one of our favorites. Mallory, share with us about Daniel.
Oh my goodness. Okay, he's coming up next. So my thing with Daniel is there's a Daniel for that. So Daniel Tiger is Mr. Rogers' friend. And if you know about Mr. Rogers, you remember Daniel Tiger, who was on the show. Daniel Tiger is actually Mr. Rogers' representation of his 4-year-old self. And so Daniel is very, very, very close and near and dear to Mr. Rogers. So now Daniel has his own show. And in true Mr. Rogers fashion, this show is all about that social emotional learning. It's all about learning how to be friends, how to regulate emotions, how to do all kinds of things. And I will tell you, when I say there's a Daniel for that, there's a Daniel for that. I always talk about my personal Kinderstar, and I love this story because she always puts Daniel into context. So I have, just full disclosure, I have 4 kids. I have 3 girls, and then I have a little boy. And one morning, the older girls, I was trying to do their hair, and it was a struggle. And so I was starting to get a little bit frustrated. And my Kinderstar just came to me and just said, Mommy, when you get so mad that you want to roar, take a deep breath and count to 4. And that was Daniel Tiger. Like Daniel Tiger, there is a Daniel for everything, y'all. So when you're looking at the different domains from foundations, he touches on all of them. So put a little Daniel in your pocket. All right, next show. Oh, I get to talk about this one too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Okay. Peg. So Peg Plus Cat is math content with a lot of comedy. So this is a show that the whole family can watch because my husband finds it funny. Cat is Peg's little sidekick, and Cat is always doing silly things. But what I love about this show is, if you can even see in this image, is everything's a math concept. The backing to all of the animation is on, you see the grid paper. If you actually saw different images, the clouds are infinity signs and all different things in Peg's world. And she makes, again, math, they take math and put it into context. So there's a pizza problem where they had to go serve pizza to the teens, and it was a big deal. And how do we make it all equitable and share? They learned about fractions, and it makes it very fun and hands-on, and again, applicable to our youngest learners. So next show. Lauren.
And you get, I believe you get her also. Molly Ambalia.
Oh goodness, I love all the friends. So Molly is so awesome. So going more with even more literacy, information. Molly focuses on informational text. And if we know about the push in education right now, there's a big push for it to be a 50-50 split between nonfiction and fiction. And so Molly explores this non-fictional world in a way that makes it really exciting. Again, PBS kids programming is all about application, real world application. So Molly is a native Alaskan, and the creators of the show are actually native. They have make sure there's all the cultural sensitivity and accuracy, and the show is awesome. It shows different Alaskan values throughout the whole programming. Kids will learn about respect for elders, as well as valuing the nature and the world. And Molly takes them all on this adventure with her friends. Tui is her friend, and Trini is actually from Texas that has moved there. So they explore some different cultural things all throughout this show, but informational text brought to life in a really relevant way.
Thank you, Mallory. And I will take the next one, my favorite. Yeah, Let's Go Luna. So as I shared at the start of this, I love Let's Go Luna. So what's so cool is that for each one of the Let's Go Luna episodes, they have cultural anthropologists on board to meticulously research and ensure that cities and regions that are shown on the show are authentically and respectfully portrayed. I wish I had this growing up. Like, how incredible. And another reason that I love this show is that the resources that are available. So as a past preschool teacher, the resources from this show are incredible. Not only just engaging for learners, but it makes it so easy for educators and not just teachers, but also parents to pull from. So Luna fosters that global awareness and tolerance. I just love it so much. And on the next slide, we'll see it broken down into that 4-step model. Not to pass it back to you, Mallory, but you do have some awesome stuff to share on this specific activity.
Okay, so yeah, Luna, okay, talking about those skills we want in our kids' pockets and things that we think about a lot of the issues. Okay, I won't go too deep, but a lot of the issues we see in the world today with lack of intolerance, if we get exposed to it at a young age, if we get exposed to diversity of face and place at a young age, then it just becomes a part of our reality. And a lot of those things just become, oh, okay, this is beautiful. And they start to respect and love and value diversity. So putting it all together with the watch, play, explore, and share, what it would kind of look like is we could watch in one episode, there's an episode where Luna goes to Mexico City. And something very special about Luna is she calls them her crazy dance legs. Whenever she hears music in any culture, she can't help but dance. And that's the beauty of Luna, is she connects us all, because no matter where you are in the world, we all have the moon. And so she loves and values dance and music from all over the world. So after we watch that episode, we might play by, let's make some instruments and let's explore this, play with this even more. What are the rhythms and the music of Mexico City? And then let's explore. My hashtag, just like I said, there's a Daniel for that. There's always a book for that, all about tying media and literacy together. You can take a deeper dive by reading a book about Mexico City. And then to share, I always say in education, when we're teaching reading, if a kid reads every word on that book and they can't tell you anything in that book, did they really read that book? No. So that sharing, going back to, like Lauren said, that deepest level of Bloom's taxonomy, what did they get out of this whole activity? And now that was a quick Pbs or watch, play, explore, and share. Now we can keep going, Michael. Thank you. And this is Jade.
So thinking about the accessibility piece again and making sure that we're reaching a broad audience, we have Bright by Text. So you got an opportunity to hear a little bit about it in our sizzle reel, but Bright by Text was born out of Denver, Colorado, and it was birthed out of the need to reach those families who had no access to formal preschool or pre-K. And so after doing some research, they found that 96% of families had access to a cell phone with texting capabilities. It provides free tips, information, and resources to parents and caregivers. Those developmental tips are based on the due date and age of a child. So you can get messages from the prenatal stage all the way up to age 8. It's available in both English and Spanish, and the nationally curated content comes from partners as PBS, Vroom, Sesame Street and Communities, as well as Delta Dental. Then going back to that partnership piece, as a North Carolina station, we work with statewide organizations here, like the Partnership for Children, as well as the State Library of North Carolina, to share out community resources and make sure that we're connecting our subscribers to events and local resources that are in their area. And then there's also the opportunity for extended learning to extend the learning based on whatever that message is. And so the way to sign up for the service is by texting our keyword connect to 274448. And I will say, if you don't have a little one at home, you can create an imaginary child, which is what I did. And it's a great way to sort of test out the service and get a better understanding of how it functions. And so next we'll hear from Lauren. She's going to share a little bit about another resource that we have, Pbs Kids for Parents.
Thanks, Jade. I love Write by Text. Y'all should definitely test it out and share it with parents in your lives. Another thing for parents that I am not a parent, but I used regularly for my niece, for my students, this is Pbs Kids for Parents. And it houses a plethora of tips, hands-on activities, games, and even apps. So there's a lot available out there as far as apps, but if you're looking for kind of a direction, keep into that safe and trusted brand, check out this website. You would love it. There's also a lot available in Spanish. So if you have a Spanish-speaking family in your life, share this with them. They can save things, share things, print activities. And again, it's all free. So another awesome free resource that I love, Mallory's going to share with us on the next slide. And I'll pass it to you, Mallory.
Oh, yes. So we've asked my favorite kids shows, definitely for me, and I know a lot of people chimed in, it is definitely the Street. Love Sesame Street. And Sesame Street is always at the top of the curve, ahead of the curve, in terms of making issues that are big, relevant, and accessible to parents and kids. And so Sesame Street and Communities, I wish we had a whole day to talk about this resource, but it is a free resource for parents and providers. And it literally does take on some of the toughest issues that parents and kids can face. Everything from poverty to parents in incarceration to community violence, but then ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. Everything is on here. It's very trauma informed. It offers professional development. Again, in Sesame Street, available in English and Spanish. And there's something about when you have a tough topic like having a parent incarceration, that Sesame has found a way to make the videos with the puppet and with language that a teacher could use, a parent could use, and that a child will understand. It's like when you put a puppet with it, all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier to touch on some of these issues. Brilliant resource. I can't go on enough about it and its relevancy and importance for social workers, everybody, school staff, everybody can benefit from this one.
So we have looked at a lot of great resources today, but we want to stop for a second. Here are the 3 that we just shared for parents. A lot of times we're receiving a lot of information and I like to see it just crisp put together. So we just talked about Write by Text, Sesame Street and Communities, and also that Pbs Kids for Parents. So save these. If y'all get the slide deck, you can click on the links. If not, pull out your phone, take a picture so you don't forget these 3 pieces. Next, we're going to look at some things that are geared on up beyond pre-K, and Mallory's going to take us on our next slide onto PBS Learning Media.
Yes, and I know we're running short on time, so we'll go quickly. But PBS Learning Media is for pre-K through 12. So I just shared with the database approach that Sesame Street and Communities has, where parents could kind of go in and they can search for a topic and find resources. Same concept on PBS Learning Media. Again, all vetted, all standard aligned. And what's beautiful about this content, that if you know, I'm coming from my assistant principal lens and going through walkthroughs, usually they don't want to see teachers sticking a kid in front of a video for an hour. Smart clips here, targeted information. Most of the videos are 7 minutes or less. You get that targeted piece of information that teachers need to enhance that lesson and keep it going. And teachers are loving this resource. So next slide, thank you.
And we have like 3 minutes left, but we do produce original content. We have a whole production vertical devoted to science, and much of it, much of the original content is promoted and utilized by middle school educators. And so you can find this on PBS Learning Media, as Mallory suggested. But we've got some beautiful animations explaining complex science concepts. I'm not doing this justice, but I recognize we don't have a lot of time. So, but this is original to UNCTV PBS North Carolina. I always say UNCTV PBS North Carolina, and I encourage you to check it out. I think we're about to wrap. What's our next slide, Michael? And there's more. And these are more resources that are available for educators and for parents and caregivers. And you can just keep clicking through since we are running out of time. And we aren't able to give this last slide a lot of attention. You can just there you go. We have maybe a minute for Q&A. And also you can reach out to us individually, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I want to thank you all for that very detailed and excellent presentation. Are there any questions from our audience? I know our speakers may have to move on to their next event soon. I have one if nobody does, but I want to let somebody else go first. I should go for it. Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys will know about this, but I suspect you might. I read a story, I want to say it was in the New York Times or someplace like that, but about a special sort of Sesame Street thing that was focused for children in the refugee camps in Bangladesh. I'm not making this up, right? So I just thought it was a really cool story. Would one of you like to tell us about the Rohingya puppets and how that came about and what the point of that is?
So Sesame Workshop's efforts are, I'm sorry for the noise. I've got students and everything happening at home. Sesame Workshop is a worldwide organization. And in addition to what's done in the States and in America, they do have productions across the world, so international productions. I can't speak specifically to that initiative, Michael, although I do know and am aware of it. But Mallory, I don't know if anybody on this team may have additional information. We can certainly share more, do some research and share more with you.
As I say, we can definitely do some more research and share more. I know I have heard of that initiative. And as Joy says, Sesame is all over the world. And Sesame Street, again, always being atop of the curve. I don't know if you've seen the things they've been doing with the CNN town halls, with COVID and with racial bias and equity. They are on top of it. So yeah, that one, and plus many, many others.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd like to, can you hear me?
Yeah, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, I was, the United Nations has a lot of regulations about refugee camps and how they handle life in there with education. And it would seem to me that all of the wealth of stuff you've created here would be very valuable in these in refugee camps to educate children in those confined communities. Have you had any interaction with anybody from the United Nations about maybe providing this type of information?
We have not, but I absolutely love that suggestion, Robert, and we would love to make a connection and see what what possibilities are out there, because we seek to serve every child, no matter where they are. So if you can make that connection, that'd be awesome. We'd love it. We'd love to pursue the possibilities.
Okay.
All right. Well, would everybody like to join me in a round of applause for our speakers? Thank you all so much for coming. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you all for this opportunity. And that's great that we're the inaugural speakers. I feel so extra proud and privileged.
As you can see, we still have some work to do on our Zoom logistics, but thank you for working with me to get through the slideshow, and we'll get better with practice.
No, it was great. We appreciate you driving those slides because it gets so cumbersome. We've all been there.
All right. Thank you all, and thanks everyone for coming.
Sorry, say it again, Robert.
I said you all did a fantastic job. Thanks so much. It was very informative.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that I took away your announcement of all of the bios. I had thought I was going to do all
You did a beautiful job, better than I would have ever done. So we all felt like superstars after that.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.